Welcome, everyone, to the 30-minute Midas touch from beautiful Dyersburg, Tennessee at the Herb Welsh WrestlePlex. Now, here is, pound for pound and inch for inch, the best of the best in professional wrestling today. A wrestling genius worth his weight in gold. The Golden Boy, Greg Anthony.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 30-minute Midas touch. I am your host, the Golden Boy, Greg Anthony, and with me, as always, is my co-host. He is Miro's favorite wrestler. Mark Tipton.
Well, thank you so much for that one. I appreciate that one a lot. The Miro, the reigning TNT champion, certainly trying to step out of his WWE shadow now that he's with AEW, and thank you for bringing that up, because that does kind of lead us into the subject of this week's edition of the 30-minute Midas Touch podcast. And it's something that I'm personally really enthused about, and I was excited about, because, as always, I approach this as a wrestling fan. I am first, foremost, and always a wrestling fan, and I look at it that way always. And so for me, I've said before that I consider professional wrestling to be the ultimate audience participation event. And for approximately a year and a half, 16 months, whatever it may be, we've had and where the national companies, for the most part, have not had a full live audience to participate. And so I'm really excited, because kind of an unofficial title of this podcast, I'll call it On the Road Again. Because what we've had happen is the national touring professional wrestling companies have gone on the road again. And what we'd like to talk about in particular this one is AEW's initial return to the road when they visited Miami for what they called AEW Road Rager.
Yeah, I mean, and just like everyone else, of course, I'm not a fan of AEW. We discussed that before, but it's fun to see a crowd again. You know what I mean? It's fun to see that reaction. And so with this show, I went into it with an open mind, and, let's just kind of go through it and see where it takes us.
All right. Well, to start off the show, they started what I thought was an interesting way. They started with a strap match. We had Cody Rhodes taking on QT Marshall in a strap match. Did you have any opinion on this match in general?
Yeah, like I'm sure QT is I know he's really technical and he's a good hand and stuff like that, but he is not a main event guy at all. And I think if Cody's going to be the whole thing with Cody is he's not going to be champion, but he's going to be a focal point. He's going to be like Kurt Angle was, there for a while in WWE after he'd been champion and stuff like that. He was a feature part of the show every week. So if Cody's going to be the feature of a lot of things, then he has to have someone of equal caliber to work with. Like I said, a QT, good, serviceable, whatever you want to call it, but he's not going to have the heat. He's not going to have the reaction. He's not going to have the momentum behind stuff like that. And the strap match itself, I mean, it was fine, and they did a lot of stuff that I myself have done in strap matches. But another thing was they forgot, they didn't think hard enough about how that all works, right? There was a lot of situations in that match where they shot him off, and the rope and the strap was tangled up on somebody, and it was in an odd spot, and it could have hurt somebody. It could have made things really, really bad. That's one of those things you just kind of got to plan for. There's certain things you just can't do in a strap match because you're tethered together. So for me, I just felt like they were. I think they were trying to do like the greatest hits of strap matches, which makes sense. But at the same time, I don't think either one of them have really been in enough strap matches to really know where to go with it. I've been in maybe 10, I think, or something like that. So, I bet I have more experience in strap matches than they do.
Well, that's entirely possible, and I do appreciate your points you're making there, because, and that's the thing I thought is, I would have to, and maybe because it's part of a weekly show, they didn't quite dedicate the time to it they should have. If it was something that they built up over the long term. Real quick, two things I did notice during this. Cody Rhodes, he did at one point he kind of reminded me of Sting. He kind of challenged him to hit him with a strap, and he did some things that reminded me of Sting, and I thought maybe that's the influence of having Sting around.
But he's not that guy, though. You know, like Sting, John Cena, Hogan, all those guys were, it was more palatable for them to walk through offense. Luger.
Well, sure.
To walk through offense than it is someone like Cody. Does that make sense?
That's fair enough.
And I'm not saying that as a knock either, because I'm the same way. Like, I can't do that kind of stuff. It doesn't get the reaction that it's supposed to, because I need to fight from underneath. I need to get my ass kicked.
And, well, let's say a Brian Cage type individual could do something like that. Would that be fair?
If Brian Cage actually worked big.
Yes.
And that's the problem with him, is that he doesn't work big. He tries to work like the 170-pound guys. Well, they've already got a whole roster full of 170-pound guys. Why don't you be the big jacked motherfucker that throws everyone around?
All right. Well, as a quick note, I'm going to slide in. During this match, there was a point where the lights went out for a moment, and then they came back up. And I really appreciated that in hindsight.
Yeah.
We will hopefully get to that soon, because that was one of my highlights of the evening. The next we had, we had the Spears, a little highlight of Shawn Spears hitting Sammy with a chair from the previous week. Just kind of carry on that situation between the two. Then we had an interview segment from the AEW World Champion, Kenny Omega. Did you want to say anything in particular about this promo?
And it's the same stuff. It's so unrealistically over the top. You know what I mean? There's been plenty of over top stuff in wrestling that worked. You know what I mean? Vince McMahon's walk to the ring is a prime example.
Right, and it's famous.
But it's when you're doing it over the top for the sake of just doing it over the top, that it becomes a trope. As one of Cody likes to say, a trope. So I just don't like Kenny Omega anyway, but I really don't like this version of him either.
Right.
Because to me it's like they're trying to put lipstick on a pig. They're trying to tell him that, this is a top guy, this guy is just as good as anyone else in the business, and he's not.
All right. Well, sometimes it feels like he's playing a role rather than being himself.
Exactly.
And that's
it has to come off genuine.
There are a couple of individuals in this company that do that for me, and then there are a couple that are not, and I hope to kind of get to praise the ones that are not.
But also on that too, Jim Ross got in trouble, a month ago or whatever it was, for saying that Randy Orton was the best wrestler in the world right now, and everybody kind of jumped on his case about. Why isn't it Kenny Omega? You work for AEW, that all kind of stuff.
He's supposed to be the company man.
Right. And then, so when Kenny Omega comes out, Jim Ross exclaims, "The greatest professional wrestler walking the planet." You know what I mean? And that's what I've been talking about. Indicative of Jim Ross is he's tongue in cheek burying everybody, and they don't even realize it. When the referees don't care if there's fucking tags going on in a tag match, he'll say stuff like, the referee's really lost control of this one. He needs to get order.
Right.
And that keeps Jim Ross's credibility as the storyteller and the announcer on the microphone.
Right. He's not ignoring what's happening.
No. He's saying all the things that he actually believes. Like, what are they gonna have to do to get a win here? Stuff like, just like little bitty stuff. And that's what I'm saying. If you listen to his commentary, it's a thing of beauty, really.
All right. Well, if I could interject real quick, one of the things that appealed to me about this was Kenny arguing with the crowd, which thrilled me just because, we've got a crowd, and the crowd was arguing with Kenny back and forth, which I appreciate. And then I guess one thing we can assess about this, whether you thought this was good or not, when Hangman Adam Page's music hit, Kenny did attempt to, get the look on his face and kind of acknowledge. Was it credible to you? Or, I thought, he's trying anyway.
He's trying,
and he acknowledged this is a challenger. This is a threat.
Yeah, that's kind of thing too. Like, at least it wasn't like nonchalant wrestling is just kills me, right? The guys like Kevin Owens, where the guy says, I'm gonna come down there and beat you up, and then Kevin Owens goes, you couldn't do that. Doesn't matter, just nonchalantly, everything. So nonchalant doesn't work in professional wrestling. So especially, I hate it when the guys go, well, tonight you're going to go one-on-one with, we'll say The Undertaker, just because that's the line,
Sure,
right?
it's the
One-on-one with The Undertaker. And then someone goes, pfft. Imagine what would happen if someone did that. They just kind of smirked it off or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
we've just destroyed your own segment.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to put over everything and everyone, especially if, like I said, Kenny Omega is this, champion that he doesn't really want to fight the real up-and-coming challengers. He's trying to hide away and keep the title as long as he can. And Adam Page comes out, and the whole crowd,
Right.
I'm not a fan. I like Adam Page a little bit. I don't like cowboy shit just because it's
Right.
cussing.
It's vulgar. Yeah.
It's too vulgar. I think it's way too vulgar for a national professional wrestling company that's trying to expand as much as they can. I think that's kind of stuff that if a potential sponsor watched the show, might go, I don't think I want to be associated with that.
And I could understand that. It's one of those things I think they're doing just to kind of say, hey, this is something you'll never see on WWE.
Yeah, let me rephrase that too. It's not that I don't like cowboy. The saying itself is
it's a cool phrase.
It's a cool phrase. I'm gonna do cowboy shit.
Right.
That's a good thing. I'd love to hear it in a R-rated movie, but I don't want to hear it on wrestling at 8 o'clock.
Right. Time and place for everything. I think that's fair. And after this, we went to a sit-down interview between Darby and Ethan Page, kind of a promo. And this was something that happened throughout the show. And just overall, this show came across to me as a season premiere, kind of a promotion for what's coming up, which is something I appreciate. It's kind of a fresh start. But this was a sit-down interview with JR involved and allowing Darby and Ethan Page to set up their coffin match for the next week, which, as you know, I've said next week are most often repeated words. Yeah. Did you have any impressions on this?
I just felt like it was, I don't want to say phoned in, but it didn't come off genuine either. It came off like they had a script or, someone was in their ear, this is what you need to say. So none of it really came off like urgent to me. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like when they had Rock and Austin do the sit down before WrestleMania 17. Right? It's not like that. You know what I mean? Like, there was palatable tension between Rock and Austin. Like, I could give two shits about, those two guys. I mean, I just didn't feel like they didn't. I don't think they did their job in selling it.
All right. I guess when I looked at this, I thought it almost felt like they were searching for a backstory to set up their match coming up the next week. They felt they needed a storyline between the two to get to this coffin match, and it was kind of like they were trying to fill it in retroactively, maybe.
Yeah, and they were and they don't understand that, but they diminished themselves. Like, I think at one point Darby Allin was talking about how Ethan Page only worked in one town, or was in the same place for 10 years or something like that. That was a part I didn't like. So I get to be the negative one on this one. I didn't like it because you had Ethan Page, who you want to portray as the villain in this situation, and he basically was criticizing him for kind of being a family man. He mentioned that he got married and had a kid, and things that... That's a good point.
Things that I generally don't like to hear about heels.
Right.
If they have those things, that's wonderful, but I don't want to hear about it during the course of the show.
Yep.
And he brought that up, but basically... And he brought it back around trying to say he was satisfied being a big fish in a small pond was the kind of thing that he didn't have the drive that Darby does. Right. Which still, to me, coming from the presumed babyface in the situation, didn't appeal to me either.
Well, yeah, it doesn't sell either one of the guys. I mean, so what you're telling me is that that the guy with no drive has a guaranteed contract in one of the major wrestling companies in the world, and he's fighting you. So what does that say about you and your place within the company?
Right.
You know what I mean? So he's beaten you probably. I'm sure he's beaten him before, right? I'm sure there's...
in the Yeah, in the build up to this.
Yeah,
and,
yeah, that's
and
what I
the
was
kind of
thinking.
the back
That's
and
what I'm
forth.
saying. So you've already been beaten by this guy, but this guy wasn't
Right.
good enough to get out of one town, but he's good enough to beat you, and you're supposed to be a worldwide superstar.
Right.
It doesn't compute. You have to think about things in a logical way.
Right.
That's why I always say you have to build everyone up, and then tell why you're still going to beat him. You know what? He's tough. He's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But you know what? He always takes a shortcut. You know what I mean? And that's going to be his downfall this Thursday night. That kind of thing.
All right. Well, up next, we went back into the ring, which I always appreciate because it is ultimately a wrestling show as much as this was about promoting things coming up. We had a 6-man tag featuring FTR along with Wardlow. At ringside, they had Tully Blanchard, and they were taking on Santana Ortiz and Jake Hager with Conan joining them at ringside.
Right.
Did you have any particular impressions of this, or did it stick out? It seemed like a continuation of the Inner Circle and the Pinnacle.
Yeah, it's just
It was, well, I'll put it this way. I did enjoy it because I like the pace of this match, and you may disagree with me. When you have a 6-man tag, just because of the number of people involved, they can really keep up the pace, and that's something that, as a fan, I enjoy watching. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the way it's meant to be. Like if you got a 6-man tag and it's got 10 minutes, it's going to be moving, or it should be.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But if you've got a 6-man tag and it's got 20, 25 minutes, then we can spend some time in some holds and sell and things like that. So, and like I said, I love FTR. I think, I think they're, if probably the greatest tag team going today. Obviously, they use a lot of that old school stuff, and they try to make everything make sense. And I just wish that they had I want to say a bigger role, but I think they should be the heel champions on top.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and carrying that tag division besides the Young Sucks.
Okay. A little Freudian slip there.
Yeah, sorry.
Is that what they? Well, okay. In any event, I do. Well, that could be an instance where we've talked about wrestling politics, and ultimately, the two people we were talking about are EVPs, and that does carry some weight. Obviously,
because they're in charge of the tag division,
and so they.
Kenny Omega's in charge of his segment, and then Cody's in charge of his segment, and then.
And I'm sure we would never hear, but I wonder how FTR feels about this situation because they really did feel like they didn't get a chance to shine, so to speak, in WWE. That was clear to me, and so I wonder if they feel like, hey, we're back in the same old situation. I wonder if that crosses their mind.
Maybe, or maybe they're just at the point now. Let's collect all the money we can and worry about the shit later. I mean. That may be part of it too. It's just one of those curious things. Obviously I never expect to hear from them on say a word if they were, but it's just something that crossed my mind that is interesting to me. Next, we go back to a promotion segment, so to speak. This involved Moxley. And I want to say Mox, but John Moxley, who is the IWGP United States Champion at the present time, and they were kind of promoting an upcoming defense of that title against Machine Gun Carl Anderson. I thought this was really well done. Do you have any particular opinion on the idea of having other companies' championships defended on your show? It works in situations like this because AEW is still a relatively new company, and IWGP is more well known in the wrestling business.
All right.
So it helps AEW for them to do that. Now, would we want to, if there was a lesser company than me around here, right, would I want to feature one of their titles on my show? No, not at all, because why would I? It holds no benefit for me to put them over and give them the rub, that kind of thing. But this is actually a situation where it's probably going to help both parties.
All right. Well, yeah, and I'm thinking about it. It's the kind of thing I don't remember WWE doing at all. They may have done it at some point, but rarely.
Very rarely. Yeah, they did Madison Square Garden stuff. They would do sometimes the NWA title.
Okay.
Right, and then also remember when Taz was a contracted WWE wrestler, and he went back to ECW and won the title.
Okay.
Then he brought the title to WWE, and he actually, I think he wrestled Triple H, but got beat.
All right.
That kind of thing. So there's a little bit of there.
So never say never.
Never say never. And it's probably just something they did want. I mean, like I said, they only did it a few times.
Okay. But, time and place for everything, I suppose.
Yeah.
The kind of recurring theme here. Now we approach one of the things that I consider the highlight of the night. And I want to see if you disagree with me here and kind of kill my buzz here. We had an interview. This was an interview segment that took place inside the ring. And it was involving MJF and Chris Jericho. I don't know if you want me to I don't know if you had a particular person, but I do want to kind of set the scene.
Yeah, go ahead.
MJF came out to the ring first before a commercial break, and then they came back, and we got Chris Jericho's entrance, and then those who are fans at heart like myself got to sing Jericho's music, because I consider one of my favorite things is when I hear a crowd sing.
Yeah.
Like that. It's something I always enjoy, and regardless of what it's about, even if you go to a concert, you hear that sort of thing. The crowd's singing along. I love that. And you had him come out. The interesting, one of the things that right off the top is they had an incident where a fan crossed the barricade and tried to get into the ring, presumably at MJF. And the security did grab a hold of him, and Jericho seemed to get a shot in or two as they carried the guy out. Do you want to comment on too much fan interaction?
Yeah, I mean, and we have our bumper at the beginning of our shows here. It says, "Hey, don't throw anything towards the wrestlers. Don't touch the wrestlers. Stay on the outside of the guardrail." That kind of thing. And that's just common sense, but it needs to be said. You know what I mean? It's never a good idea for a fan to try to get physically involved during one of these shows. It's going to end badly for you.
Right.
Because even if I'm wrestling a guy that we don't like each other, and
that happens,
we're going to team up and beat the living hell out of whoever it is. You understand? And it just comes back to, and there's certain situations too. Like we always talk about, like the ring is ours, but the floor is theirs. Does that make sense? So like you don't do a lot on the floor, because you're giving people an opportunity
to get involved,
to do something like that.
Yeah.
So like, to protect yourself a lot of times, that's why we try to keep most of the stuff in the ring.
Right.
And only on the rare occasions where it's necessary.
Or at least inside the barricade, so to speak.
Yeah, something like that.
And that's for the sake of everybody. If it could potentially obviously spin out of control and have terrible
anything can
consequences.
go wrong at a wrestling show, and it's the unpredictability of it is one of the scariest things as a promoter, because literally anything could happen.
Okay, well now I want to talk about part of what made me so thrilled about this. After I got through with the entertainment of the fans being involved in Jericho's entrance, and then seeing the fan, as much as I understand the serious nature of fans getting involved, it did my heart good. And I did find out via a fan called into Busted Open Radio and kind of spilled the beans that MJF came out before the commercial, and then during the commercial break, he took advantage of the situation and grabbed a microphone and explained to the citizens of Miami what disdain he had for them and everyone who was there. And knowing that kind of made more sense why you had that, and it kind of builds back to, we talked about people, kind of playing bad guy, but not really being. To me, MJF is a heel.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think this could be Chris Jericho's influence on him too, because Jericho did the same thing during his famous 1004 holds promo. Where he was talking about arm bar, left arm bar, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the credunzel. There was something about a credunzel in there.
Yeah, the three-legged moss-covered credenza. Yeah, but. Yeah, he did the same thing when he was reading the list. They went to commercial. Well, during the commercial break, apparently he was just decimating their sports teams for the entire duration. And then when they came back, there was this thunderous boo, and he was still doing the thing, and it looked like the storytelling looked like
he'd been calling off the list.
He'd been just doing the list the entire time, and they were reacting to that. But when in fact he had insulted them directly.
Well, anyway, I just appreciate MJF. To me, he legitimately portrays the heel.
Yeah.
There's nothing really redeeming about him. He's just...
Yeah, he's a smug little fuck.
He's just.
Once again, I love 80% of what he does. I don't agree with the overall cussing that he does sometimes.
Right.
And GD and things like that. And sometimes he does... Like one time I saw him take a buckle. Like someone ran his head into the top buckle, and he actually jumped on the bottom rope and did a moonsault. You know what I mean? Like, obviously that's ridiculous and phony. So, I mean, it didn't have any place in professional wrestling. So, stuff like that. But for the most part, yeah, he is one of the few heels in professional wrestling.
All right.
Currently.
Yes, and he is legitimate. I'm going to try to speed up here. I'm afraid time might get away from me. I get a little too enthused. But we did have a Britt Baker kind of promotion of her upcoming match for defending her championship. She did slip in a dig at WWE by mentioning Saudi Arabia. She used the phrase blood money and then said maybe we could have a show in Saudi Arabia. I'm not sure I'm a fan of that sort of thing. Referencing the other company too much to me could be,
well,
particularly when your significant other works there.
It's just above her pay grade. Like,
Right.
she's not the kind of talent that needs to be saying stuff like that.
Okay.
Because she could be let go at AEW at any point.
Right.
And then where would she go?
Okay.
You know what I mean? And as far as blood money goes, listen, it's a business,
Right.
WWE was offered
A significant.
Oh my God! I wish someone would offer us, a percentage of that just to go over there and do something like that. So.
Exactly. Well, then we had the AEW in-ring debut of Andrade El Idolo as he took on Matt Sydal.
Yeah, this was a good match. I actually like Andrade. I think he's a natural kind of guy. Obviously, what is he, a third generation?
I believe that's correct.
Third generation. I mean, the only thing I don't like about his entrance is I don't like when they come out in the mask and then take off the mask. You know what I mean? Because, like, when you come out in the mask, then no one knows who the fuck you are, right? And we're seeing a lot of that on the independent scenes. Like, guys wear that half mask. There's so many guys that wear that, and it's like they put you on posters like that, and you're like, well, who is it? You know what I mean? Like, it could be one of 1,200 other guys that are doing the exact same thing, So, it needs to be something more unique to yourself. But Andrade and Sydal had just a solid match. Obviously I personally think it needed to be shorter because, you're featuring Andrade here.
Yeah.
And
a little too much back and forth.
A little too much back and forth. He just needed to show everybody this is the shit that I do. And I go over with his finish and, let's start storytelling from there. But, yeah, there was a little too much back and forth.
Yeah, I did notice he tried to stick in at the a little post-match attack to kind of cement his status as, not a crowd favorite.
But exactly. It could have been established just with
a shorter match.
With a shorter match and a
then
clean win, yeah.
Fair enough. All right, then we had another promotion for an upcoming match between Christian and Matt Hardy. Those of us long-term fans always look forward to seeing these two get together.
And actually, I actually watched that one this week.
All right.
And it was a really good match.
Yeah.
I mean, those two guys are just phenomenal. And they can still go. I think that was one of the best AEW matches I've seen. So.
Yeah, it was. Absolutely. And with two experienced guys like that, you expect it. All right, now we've hit another one of the things that I particularly enjoyed that because it calls back to the opening match of the night. We had Arn Anderson in the ring, and he was kind of being interviewed by Tony Schiavone. And just after Arn had barely gotten a few words out, the lights went out, as they had in the opening match when Cody and Arn...
And the announcers, the first time it happened, the announcers said, hey, we've been having technical difficulties tonight.
Right.
That kind of thing. And they reiterated that when it happened this time. Oh, we're having technical difficulties. So everyone believed it.
And then, when the lights came back up, there was a mysterious figure in the ring along with Arn Anderson. And it was formerly known as Aleister Black, but that name is no more.
Right.
We've gone away from that. He was known as Tommy End for some time. But now, Malachi Black.
Okay, so this is why I don't like Excalibur.
Yes.
Because he doesn't think about things in reality, right? So, Aleister Black comes out. Right? Someone said it's Aleister. Did they say Aleister?
No,
Tommy End.
They called him Tommy End, which was his independent.
Independent name. Tommy End. Oh, that's not Tommy End. That's something completely different. That's Malachi Black. Well, how the fuck did you know that? Right? That completely kills any suspension of disbelief that he was a surprise.
Right.
You know what I mean? And this isn't just AEW, but I saw this happen 25 years ago on WCW, right? Fit Finlay jumped the rail and beat up Steven Regal,
Right.
right? And Tony Schiavone's going, well, who is this guy? I don't have any idea who this guy is. What's he doing? That kind of thing, right? And then he goes, I'm Fit Finlay, and I'm here to, whatever, right? And then Schiavone goes, Dave Finlay.
Oh.
Like you just said, you didn't know who he was, but you know his Jesus name. You know his his government name, his Christian name. So yeah, it's one of the callback to that. Like as far as Malachi Black goes, or Alice or whatever, Tommy N, whatever you want to call him. Like, I mean, it's still too far fetched. You know what I mean? Like they're trying to play off that he got his eye taken out and like he's got this weird whatever. And I know they did that thing the day of where he was in the mental institution. And did you see that or hear about that?
I don't suppose I saw that, but
okay, it was on his end. Like he did it on his own social media. So it was like he was in a mental institution. Apparently he'd been having he'd been there for 5 years, which is the amount of time
he was in WWE. Yes.
And then like, it was all this, blah, blah, blah. And then he escaped.
Okay.
Right. And that led to this, but no one, that's too intricate. You understand? Like that's not going to relate. I mean, it's okay to have stuff like that, but you can't rely on people to know that to tell your stories.
No, don't have something. No, TV should be the first place anyone saw him. Yeah. That's frustrating. But I will say and you did mention, I love this. For me, it was a surprise. I was not aware of anything beforehand. And the surprise factor, and I thought the audience gave you the way to go. They shouted Tommy, Tommy. They knew his independent name, and they called him Tommy End. Just call him Tommy End, and then have him tell you, I am now known as Malachi Black.
Right.
It wasn't. That was frustrating, but no, Excalibur, and I'll see if you feel this way, I got the impression that he is someone who, really gets into the background and knowing all these things, and he wants everyone to know that he knows all these things.
Yeah, but he's not Mike Tenay either. I mean, like, Tenay used to tell stories, but he was telling, like, facts.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, stuff that would actually help you determine, when he would explain Lucha Libre to everybody, they had a hair versus mask match that sold out Mexico City,
at Triple Mania or whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
And he would know all about it.
Right, but like you said, he's trying to, like I said, it's ass backwards storytelling.
Right.
You know what I mean? So just the same thing with him trying to, and we always harp back on this, but the Chris Statlander shit where he was trying to put over she was an actual alien.
No.
You know what I mean? I think she may abandon that part of it because when I saw her last, I mean, she wasn't doing.
Yeah, and I just want to say, hey, basically, he's still, he's at least at the national level, he's still of a new entity. So maybe over time, some of these things will come across to him. And
well, that's the thing. This guy's been running his own shows for 20 years. I mean, how much more experience do you need? You understand? And that just goes to the fact that. It's always been the blind leading the blind. This whole new era of guys that are trying to reinvent the wheel. Well, here's a prime example of it right here.
All right, we did have a promotion for a match between Ricky Starks and Brian Cage, the aforementioned Brian Cage, which went by really quick. And then we had a mixed tag team match, not intergender, which I appreciate. I'm not a fan of the intergender myself, but the Bunny and the Blade versus the aforementioned Chris Statlander and Orange Cassidy.
Okay, so I think, let me make sure I get this right. I think the Bunny gave Statlander like a German suplex off the top or something big.
Yeah, it was a big thing.
It was a big thing, right? Mm-hmm. And then she went and tagged out.
Yes.
That's...
Right.
Yeah. That doesn't make any sense, right? Because the whole point is to win
the match.
And when you tag the guy in, the other guy has to come in. That means the girl is not legal anymore. And like it's just simple rules like that are completely missing from AEW that help with that storytelling.
All right, I think I may have, if I remember right, and I stand to be corrected, I think that the Blade had attacked Orange on the outside and had him down, and the idea...
Yeah, they tried to put over, like, the idea was
going to be
he was more in jeopardy than her, but she was laid out in the
where
middle
you could have
of the
went
ring.
for a pin.
Yeah, exactly.
And they were trying to get a count out on Orange on the outside.
Maybe
it is a stretch.
Yeah, put the pin on her first. 1, 2, kick out. Oh shit! Go tag the guy in. Now he tries to get the win on the guy we attacked on the outside.
All right, then we had a very quick kind of a promo segment. The leader of America Top Team, the MMA camp, whatever, he came out and basically got destroyed by Lance Archer.
Yeah, but he cut probably the best promo on the whole show.
Yeah,
You know what I mean, that guy, he's been on MLW and
Yes.
a couple other things like that too, and I think he gets it. And apparently, I heard that he's actually one of the biggest belt collectors. Like, he actually has ring used championships from the territory days.
Okay.
You know, that kind of thing. So, I think he's a huge fan of wrestling. He knew what to do, man. He got under everyone's skin. He basically said, AEW's the shits, and like Tony Khan wanted me to come look at this. Well, I did, and I'm not
And it's
impressed.
crap.
It's
Right.
crap, you know. And like then Lance Archer came out and
and made the comparisons to Florida Championship Wrestling,
Yeah,
which made sense at the
yeah,
local
yeah.
level.
Absolutely.
All right, and then we get to the main event of the evening, which was a street fight featuring the Young Bucks versus Penta and Eddie Kingston.
Yeah, I mean, at least this one, I guess it was it supposed to be like a no DQ or
Well, street fight, yeah,
street fight?
street fight.
Yeah,
kinda.
that's one because there was no tags.
No, it was
Which, okay, so we've heard me complain about the tag stuff many, many times. So like, at least this match wasn't supposed to have tags, as to where the other matches are
No.
supposed to have tags and they still don't.
no, it's just a brawl.
Just a brawl. And while we're on the subject too, you know, if I've never explained part of the Young Bucks thing is the Young Bucks started this thing where if you're brothers, it's okay to have a random other tag name, right? But that's okay. Think about professional wrestling, for instance. Okay, think about all the tag teams in professional wrestling. Okay, now think about how many of them are actually brothers. It's gonna be a low percentage.
Relatively few.
Relatively few. So if it's so few of a number, why wouldn't you capitalize on that? Because we've for decades, century in wrestling, we've created family members
Right.
and relations to help get other people over and stuff like that. And here you have a legitimate relation. You know what I mean? And you're choosing to, you know, put over a name like the Young Bucks or something like that rather than
Where we had, the Hardy Boys.
yeah, or
you
the
had
Steiners or you know,
Yeah, the Hardy Boys,
the
Steiners,
Briscoes.
the Briscoes.
I mean, it's endless.
That
you know?
sort of thing, as opposed to, say, the way family relations were created with Arn Anderson becoming an Anderson.
Right. I mean, like I said, we had to create that though.
Yeah.
But now imagine if because they went by it a little bit, but it wasn't their main name. They were still the Andersons.
Right.
The Minnesota Wrecking Crew was just
yeah.
their moniker pretty much, right? But they were still the Andersons.
Right.
Now imagine if we didn't put them over as the Andersons at all. It was just the Minnesota Wrecking Crew.
Right.
So people think
you didn't acknowledge it.
Those are just two people from Minnesota. It wouldn't have the same effect. Oh, that's a nephew and a uncle.
That kind of thing. All right. Anyway, anything in particular else stand out about this?
I mean, it was just the same video game bullshit they always do. I mean, it's just
Right.
all over the place.
I'm trying to remember. Was this the one? I'm trying to remember during the course of this was it during this match they did a Canadian Destroyer through the table.
I think so, yeah. And then
They then continued the match.
absolutely.
For quite some time.
And see and the thing is, moves only mean as much as you make them mean. You understand? So if you take a Canadian Destroyer and it's not the finish, you understand? Then you've done that. I mean, I want everything I do to mean something. If I do an arm drag, I'm going to sell the arm drag because the guy just did an arm drag. You know what I mean? But like they don't want to sell anything. They don't want to sell kicks. They don't want to sell pile drivers. They don't want to sell, you know, all this kind of stuff. And it's really frustrating because we have a generation of kids that are coming up and this is what they're seeing, thinking this is professional wrestling when it's in actuality not.
All right. All in all, I still had a very positive opinion of it coming out, just because I mentioned some of the things, the highlights, and I thought it was a good way to get professional wrestling back on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. But once again, we are over time. We're almost to 40 minutes again. So, so for myself, the Golden Boy Greg Anthony, and my co-host, Miro's favorite wrestler, Mark Tipton, thank you. and goodbye.